Go ahead and dive in a little bit. For the actual structure, one thing I want to do is you've heard a new voice on the presentation, but Megan, before we start getting into the nuts and bolts, why don't you introduce yourself and Liaison and what exactly this whole Common Application System and Liaison International are for?
Yeah, so my name is Megan Marshall, and I'm the Client Success Manager for OPRESCAS. So we are obviously partnered with NCOPE to provide the OPRESCAS application. CAS actually stands for Centralized Application Service, so it just gives candidates the ability to fill out one centralized application and then apply to multiple programs. So they don't have to go in and fill out a million different applications. So basically, you guys would start off working with NCOPE, and once you're fully vetted, we would kind of take over the reins, help you, get you set up in WebAdmit. And I'm also the person who would be reviewing and approving the programs in the configuration portal. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Chris, and he's going to do, I think, some of the configuration portal. And then after that, I will show you guys some of the application review functions you can do within WebAdmit.
And one thing that I thought was humbling to hear, and I'm in the same boat with a lot of folks, if I have a system I don't use day in and day out, I always need to get reacquainted. So hopefully everybody can see the deluxe NCOPE web page, but we have a couple of new things I want to show you. First and foremost, if you click OPRESCAS down here, we now have a new set of resources. So individuals that are looking for residency, when companies and organizations make their applications available, we are notifying them now. They also have a direct link to the application. But what I think is going to be most helpful for you guys is our new resource portal. So if you go to Residency Program Resource Portal, and the web page is just oprescas.liaisoncast.org. You could always bookmark this. It won't change. But this is made just for the actual organizations and the folks that are representing them. So you have a direct link to sign into WebAdmit, and a lot of the concepts and skills that we're going to cover today we have broken down here for how to access config portal, some of the basic information that's necessary, even how to do some of the graphics, because WebAdmit's really specific on what they're looking for with that. The other thing that candidates have been pressuring me about, and it's a good thing, is they always tell me, Chris, there's certain things I wish I knew. So there's a link that says information to share with candidates. And what I like to do is I actually just copy and paste this directly into the configuration portal for my company and answer the questions verbatim so they have what they're looking for. On that end, the other thing that I want to show you guys, it's a little bit of a different approach, is I want to take you on the point of view of what the actual candidates see as well. So hang on one moment, and I'm actually going to show you what an OPRESCAS application looks like, because I think that's probably the easiest way to show you what the experience is like for the person who's applying. Because one of the most common misconceptions I get is, Chris, you guys got me an account. Candidates can see me, right? Only if you've configured. So I just demonstrated this at the North Carolina chapter, and I had 4 hands eagerly raise their hand and go, Chris, we're in the system. And I go, really? Let's take a look at North Carolina state programs available. None. So it does actually have to be configured, but one thing that's new for candidates is future programs. So if you actually have a program that is going to start taking applications a little bit later, candidates can now see that. So Matt's Clinic, for example, is going to start taking applications a little bit later, and you'll see the future denoted here. So that's one of the big upgrades that's been put into place recently with the application portal. So how do we get candidates able to see what the heck you guys have going on? Well, that all relates back to the WebAdmit tool. So WebAdmit is your screen and universe's perspective of OPRESCAS. So OPRESCAS is what we tell every applicant about, and WebAdmit is the way that you share information with candidates. So when you sign in on a given year, if this is your first time in the system, you probably have a screen that looks a lot like this. And you'll see there's no applications in progress. There's nothing going on. First thing you always want to double check is that you're in the current cycle. We talk about the concept of cycles, and those begin in the fall of a calendar year and end in the subsequent calendar year. So fall 2019 through summer 2020 is the current cycle. make sure you choose the right one, as you actually, if you've been in the system before, can go way back if you really wanted to the previous years. So make sure you're current. 2, within the WebAdmit system, it's not one user per organization. As a matter of fact, if you have human resources people that need to look at resumes and you have other people in the residency that want to look at applicants, get them in the system. Easiest way to do it is click Admissions Users, click New User, and before you make a new user, you actually can see everybody who you're already working with. So here's the 3 people at the hospital that I work with. But if you wanted to add someone, it's pretty straightforward. Enter their first name, last name, title, email address. Phone number is not required. You can enter it if you want, and we can use it to help track you down if we ever need help. And primary user is usually the residency director, the one who's going to be in the system the most. Last but not least, don't forget your work group, which is WebAdmit administrators. All of you are WebAdmit administrators. There's only one. And also, if you have multiple programs, for example, the VA, if you're the primary user for the Department of Veteran Affairs, there's going to be 25 unique programs, but Ken, you're probably only going to see programs within the New York Metro, for example. So you won't be able to see the applicants for the Orlando VA. Once you're happy with that, if you hit submit, it'll send them a welcome email. And those welcome emails don't come from anybody at NCOPE.org. They come from Liaison International, and it says liaisoncast.edu or webadmit.org. So keep in mind, not every email about this is going to come from somebody that's at NCOPE.org. So that's how you add a user, but we're not going to add Matt to the organization just yet.
Chris, can I interrupt you for a minute? This is Ken.
Go for it, Ken.
When I log on to mine, I see my name, this whole top section populated, but under the program assignments, I don't see anything.
Yep, and you shouldn't, because Martin and Jeff actually haven't built any programs yet. So those program assignments won't be visible until they've actually had their configurations approved. So
okay.
Nothing has been submitted yet. And if you see no program assignments, that means candidates aren't seeing anything because nobody submitted the configuration. And that's the next step, Ken, is configuration portal. And if you're at the VA, Mr. Bott is going to be working directly with you and Martin on this one. So configuration portal is where you actually make the volitional choice to share your program with applicants. So when you click on configuration portal, on the left-hand side, you usually have one option, OPRESCAS. It'll ask you what year. Make sure you pick the current one. And it'll have your organization name conspicuously listed as well. And right now where I work, we already have 4 fully approved programs, which is great. But let's say I wanted to add an additional residency that starts at a different time. Let's say we wanted to add an orthotics residency in the spring. It's easy. Click the plus button, and instead of hitting the add button here, hit copy. And I can tell it, duplicate the 12-month orthotic residency, and hit the copy button. And the best part, one, it'll be at the top and say draft. If it says draft, that means candidates don't know you exist yet. But also, I don't have to retype everything. So, without further ado, I'm going to hover over the top and click details. Now, if at any point you're wondering, gosh, what do candidates see? I don't have an OPRESCAS account. These little eyeballs are the secret to your success. If you hover over homepage and branding and click it, you can actually see what our organization's application looks like. And since we're a teaching hospital, we're required to use the hospital's tool as well as OPRESCAS. So resumes and initial applications start here. And then if we like the candidate, they go through our HR department for those next subsequent steps. And this is what our HR department portal will look like.
Chris, are we able to copy previous year's programs and just update small details?
You bet. Naturally, every year when the cycle resets, Megan copies them all over for you. So you should already have them pre-copied.
Yep.
And if not, we got moves.
Sorry.
So, real quick, let me show you a couple of general things. First of all, I'm going to go back to my organization, and let's imagine that I'm a brand new user. And actually, that's the case. Deborah's not used the system before. It's going to be a clean slate. Let's make a new program. I'm going to click Add. For your residency program name, you want to identify whether it's orthotics, prosthetics, or dual discipline. So we're going to go ahead and actually call this Advanced O&P Prosthetic Residency Summer 2020. So this is actually something the candidates will see. The more descriptive you are, the better. For your WebAdmit name, we can actually use abbreviations, Prosthetics Summer 2020. This is your internal reference. You could type in your organization's location, Scenic Las Vegas, Nevada. Zip code, I'm going to put in the Alexandria, Virginia zip code just for fun. I recognize that's not yours. Important things to know. Open date is the date that you want candidates to be able to start applying. Make sure you set this date in a manner that works for you. If you want it open as soon as possible, well, you can always just pick today. For the residency start date, if you want the residents to show up at a particular month, make sure you identify the season. If you want them to start July through mid-August, summer 1 is usually a good place to start. So we'll pick that. Start year. This is probably the biggest mistake folks make is they pick years out of cycle. Megan probably more often than not, she follows up with folks, goes, hey, looks like you're not hiring anybody for 3 years. We want you to actually tell us about what's going to be happening in the next 12 months. So we'll say summer 2020. For deadlines, if you don't want a deadline, you want to leave this thing wide open until you get the best applicant possible, pick rolling. Alternatively, if you realize administratively, we need to draw a line in the sand. We can't take applications very long. You could say December 1st, and you could always sit there and say shows December 1st, or if you want to convince them that they should get things done quicker, you could always put different date and say November 15th, so they actually get it done 2 weeks early, but you let them keep submitting stuff if something happens. Here's the other piece of the puzzle, program type. I got a lot of residency programs that go, we do orthotics, we do prosthetics, we do combined. You want to create one program for each respective discipline. So this one's the prosthetic version. For track, you actually can pick clinical, research, and either or if you want. So if you're a site that you go, you know what, the resident can pick. Choose either or and hit save. And now...
And sorry, just to jump in really quick on that. Final submission date for this cycle is going to be August 28th, 2020. So just keep that in mind. That would be the last date that you'd be able to use.
Yep. So in the event that you're actually looking to keep that wide open, that's the only way to go. So right now I have my advanced O&P, and if I click my details again in WebAdmit, and I click my little eyeball, and you see I only have one eyeball. A lot of stuff's turned off at the moment. You got to turn it on. But this is what candidates see, and if I saw this, I'd go, that place looks terrible. There's no info. How do we fix that? Go to branding, and you can edit the header if you're comfortable with graphics. I'm not too worried about making it pretty. I'm more worried about instructions and info. And this is what candidates want. Click Edit Instructions, and you'll see you have a clean slate. And you might remember I had my info to share with candidates that I have here on my webpage. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to go right back here, and I'm going to paste it as plain text. And the easiest way to do it, just break it out into individual items. What's a nice way to make it a little prettier if you want is it's a lot like Microsoft Word. You can just put a little bullet in there, and if you tab over, you can even put it in there. Mostly pediatrics, but geriatrics is taught at the local VA hospital. So you can answer these questions, but I could tell you the one thing that candidates really, really, really want. Who do I talk to if I have any additional questions, comments, or concerns? You'd be amazed how many times candidates call up a company, your front office staff says, hang on, let me get you human resources. And they go, we don't have a residency program. Now I recognize most of you have very sharp HR folks, but if there's somebody tied to the residency program they should be talking to versus the person who's more familiar with HR law, put that person's email address if they like emails, or give the phone number if they like phone calls. But this is the number one thing that drives candidates nuts, is that they don't know who to actually talk to. So On that note, if I actually click save, and I recognize this isn't the prettiest ball of text in the world, the one thing that you can see very rapidly though is if I click my eyeball, now I at least have that information available, and even the formatting that I used has been retained. You can continue to edit all of these things until you submit for review. So right now you're probably going, all right, Chris, I told the candidates what they want. Can they see it? No. You have to click submit for review. And when you click this button, it'll actually go, are you sure you want to submit this? If you accidentally click it because you sneezed, don't worry. And if you do hit submit, we can still open it up so you can continue to edit it. Don't worry. Because here's the other things that you're going to want. Right now, the way I have things set up, no resumes. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. You probably want to get a resume, I would think. So how do we turn all that on? Click Editor. Resumes are a document. Just click the little checkbox next to Documents, and you've turned on Documents. Click the word Document. And now all you got to do is say, I want to request a resume. As a matter of fact, I even want to see your application until you have it in my hand. If you choose Require, it will require the maximum number of items. So right now you want to only have one resume. If you change this to 5, you're going to force that candidate to upload their resume 5 times, which most will because they want a job. But you probably only want one. Other things that folks often do is they'll use the other example. So if you wanted to actually go in there and say, please upload pictures of your clinical projects using other, you can do that and let them do things like upload 4 images. Once I click save, I can go back to program details, and that all looks pretty good. Let's go back to my organization. Here's Advanced O&P, the company I was just working on. I'm going to edit my details. See how my eyeball popped up for documents? Cool. So if I click on that, I can actually see here's my instructions, and here's the blanks that the candidates are going to ultimately have available for them. A couple other things real fast under Editor. If you want to ask interview questions during the application electronically, go for it. Just tick this box here, click questions, and you just have to add the information. It uses a WYSIWYG editor, or what you see is what you get. It's an awful lot like Microsoft Word. So we can say general info, add. And let's add a question real quick. What got you into the O&P profession? And you just got to tell it this is an essay or multiple choice if you wanted to have some fun. My friend told me about it. Now, let's do an essay. The other thing is maximum characters. In general, I say most folks don't want to look at more than 1,000 characters, but if you want to let them put in 50,000 characters, they will. And also you can require the question as well. Just click the add button. The last thing is Instructor Evals. Instructor Evals are nice. You don't have to create the form. We've already made it for you. But what you can do is by turning on instructor evaluations, you could say, at minimum, we want 1 instructor evaluation, and at maximum, I want 3. But what it does is it has the student request that their O&P faculty members give them feedback. On that note, smaller programs might actually have no more than 3 faculty members, while Northwestern, oh, we got a good dozen. To that end, the one thing that I strongly encourage you to do is minimum required must be completed to be submitted. Pick no. Because the big thing here is they will hold up the application not because the resident applicant did anything wrong, but because the faculty member is slacking. And they don't think they're slacking so much as they're busy people. So let's go ahead and click save real fast.
Chris, you said those, there's a form already for those evaluations?
There is.
Can you,
Yeah, we have a standard
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so what happens is when the applicant goes into the application, they'll click create evaluation request and add the name and email of the evaluator. And then once they save it, that recommender gets the email. They would go to this online account, log in, and then complete it all electronically. So this is all tied to the CAS system.
okay, because we used to send out our own evaluations, but it sounds like you've done that work already.
Yeah, so basically if you did want to turn on evaluations this way, it would have to be through our letters portal.
Okay. Is there a way that we can see what that evaluation is asking as to whether it's
Yeah.
something we want or not?
Yeah, I can send you guys like screenshots of what the evaluator portal looks like.
That'd be great.
I'll send that after the meeting.
And the questionnaire was actually developed by the RRDs, the Regional Resident Director Network. So we worked with a group of directors in private and hospital-based settings to create it. So it's a pretty nice instrument, and as a guy that fills out a lot of instructor evals, it's probably one of the better ones I filled out. So one last thing I want to show you before I hand things off to Megan and open up the floor to questions for you guys is we have our eyeballs. So now I can see, here's my essay question. And here's my document request. But again, even with all that awesome stuff in there, you still have to submit it for review. But what I recommend you do is once you build out one program for prosthetics, don't reinvent the wheel. Just repeat it and copy it to make the orthotic one and just change the word prosthetic to orthotic. So until you click submit for review and get this in Miss Marshall's hands, it's not visible to candidates yet. So that's really the last piece of the puzzle that I wanted to show you. Any questions about the general configuration portal before we focus in a little bit more about how to actually look at your applicants?
Hey Chris, this is Erin.
Go ahead, Erin.
So I think you already know, but I got a little trigger happy and I submitted everything, but still need to do some editing. You said that's still possible after it's submitted?
You bet, because Megan has the power to actually put it back into edit mode instead of approved, and it'll be just like it was before you ever submitted.
Okay,
Only
great.
if, yeah, I haven't already approved it, yeah.
Okay, if it gets approved, then what do you do?
Let me look you up here.
And actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn off my screen share. And Megan, I'm going to give you the ability to drive. So feel free to click the box with the up arrow, and it'll allow you to share your screen with the audience.
Gotcha.
Or there may even be a box in your window that, there we go.
Okay, cool.
Game on.
And let me just check.
So while Megan's checking on that, do we have any other questions about the WebAdmit portal?
So Chris, this is Ken. So I'm not going to be able to do anything in this until Martin and Jeff designate the programs, or no?
You can actually sign into WebAdmit. I believe you have an account, but as you saw, it's a clean slate. So
Yeah, exactly.
you can
I
click
can
around.
sign in.
And what I would recommend you do is one thing I didn't show you guys, but on the left-hand side, underneath where it said Management, just below that was Help. And actually, if you click on Help Center and Training Resources, they have the video tutorials that will walk you through the steps that I just did, plus what Megan's about to show you guys live as well. So that actually...
And I'm sorry to interrupt. What site am I looking up where I'm checking to see if it's approved?
Oh, the BCB group for SRT.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Aaron, I think your date was off.
Is that the one where you put in I think the start date was 2020 and the end date was 2021?
Yeah, I probably messed it up.
No, no worries. Yeah, so I think I sent a message just about like the dates that it needs to be within. So
Okay.
for that, yeah, let me, I will send you an email about that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions about configuration portal or getting folks in the system?
Alrighty. I'm gonna get into Chris's WebAdmit account now.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to hand things off to Megan and have her taking a little bit of a tour on how to interact with the applicants a little bit more effectively. So if you're looking at the screen now and going, wow, that's a lot of menus, this is the Liaison International Employee Portal.
You can ignore that for
than I do.
Yeah, I'm an administrator. So this is basically what you guys are going to see when you log in. So this right here is the dashboard. If you are anywhere in WebAdmit and you want to come back to the screen, you can just click this logo here. And can you guys all see this okay? Do you want me to zoom in?
That's good.
Okay. Alrighty, so and Chris touched on this a little bit, but again, these drop-down boxes, if you have multiple cycles, if this is your first cycle, you're just going to see this one here. Now, one of the big things I think one of you guys mentioned was you went in and you had your site configured and it was approved, but then you logged in and you didn't see any applications here. So that does happen a lot. You want to make sure that once you get that notification that you have been approved, you would need to add the programs. So you would go to account, you would go edit my account, and then you would check off all these program assignments. And again, like what someone mentioned before, if nothing's been configured, this will be blank. So that's how you know, oh, I need to go in and configure my programs. Now, again, I'm just going to use this here to go back to the dashboard. And I'm going to switch to the 18-19 cycle. So if any of you guys used it previously, and maybe in the previous cycle you created, email templates or exports or something, users that you didn't want to have to carry them, you didn't want to have to go in and manually create them all over again, you can transfer your settings. So if this is your first cycle, you won't have that, but you'll be able to use it next cycle. So this just kind of helps to cut down on some of your time. So let's see. We also, emailing is probably a big one. We already showed you how to do admissions users. So for emailing within WebAdmit, it's just a little strange because when you send out an email here, they can't necessarily reply to WebAdmit. So the first thing you'd have to do is put in an email address where you want the replies to go to. So, it's probably going to be your admissions, or if you are really brave, your own personal or admissions email address. So once you have put in your email address here, which is pretty simple, you're just going to enter in your name, the address, and then you would check off all the programs. And once you've added the email address, you can go here into email templates. And you can go new email template, name it invited for interview or something like that. This visibility here, if you're the only one who's going to be using this email, you can just do only myself. But let's say you have added other users, you have people who are helping you out with this review, you want them to be able to see this email and use it, you would change visibility to everyone. So that would mean everybody within your program here would be able to see this email. Again, you'd want to make sure you check off all the programs, because let's say you check off this, but then you leave this off, you won't even see this email template if you're looking at an applicant who applied to this program. So you'd put the subject line here. In the body, it's pretty cool. You have these, formatting options. You can also use mail merge, which I love. So, put in hello first name, and then all of that information auto fills in. So this is another really great thing about the email function, is that when you send out the emails, you can track what happened. Where did it go? Was it delivered? Did they open it? All of that stuff. So there's not this back and forth of someone saying, no, I didn't get the email. You know how that goes. So there are two ways to check the status of an email. You can go here to search correspondence, and you can check it here. You can check using all of these filters. Or if it would be easier, you can just go into an individual application, which this is all going to be showing them here in progress. They haven't submitted, complete they have. You could go in here, click on an application, and it's going to show you the individual application panels for this particular applicant. And if you wanted to email them, you would scroll, and then here you could go new email, and then you can email them straight from here. And then also in this tab, it's going to show you the status of that email, whether it was sent, delivered, and whether or not it was opened. So I'm just kind of briefly show you guys what it looks like when you go within an application. It's going to have, basically, it's going to take the application from the CAS side and just translate it here into these panels. So you have contact information, designations, the documents here. The full application PDF is just going to be the entire application that they completed. If you just want to look at, say, transcripts, you can do that here. You can see that this is unofficial and when they uploaded it. You have applicant uploaded documents. Application level basically means that in the application you have these 4 quadrants. the first 3 are going to be standardized across all of the sites. And then the program level documents are the documents that you set up in the configuration portal. So right here is if you set up, you wanted a resume or something, you would see this under applicant
I don't
uploaded.
have the room reserved, so.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, no, I'm really interested. I just came.
And lastly, over here, we have admissions uploaded documents. So this is really helpful. Sometimes an applicant will submit or candidate will submit and say, oh man, I had another document I really wanted to give you guys. You can take it directly and then just upload it here so that when you go into the application, you can refer to that additional document. So evaluations here, this is what is tied to that letters by liaison evaluator portal that I'm going to send you guys screenshots of. So basically, if you click on this here, it's going to show you the letter that was actually uploaded. Within this letters portal, there are a couple different things that they would have to do. They go in and they just answer some questions about the applicant, and then they would indicate whether or not they recommend them. So you can click details here just to see the name of the reference. And then evaluation details here to see you know, the answers that they put to these questions and their ratings for the candidate here. So that is that. We've got any questions so far about these panels? Alrighty. So we've got the custom questions here. This would be if you added questions in the configuration portal, you would be able to see the answers here. Now custom fields. Chris, I'll delete this because I kind of was messing with your account and I added this in here. There are some times where you may want to be collecting information that isn't in the application. For instance, some like to assign candidates a unique identification number just so they have their own internal way of tracking it. This is very open-ended in terms of what you can create. It really just has to do with what information you guys need if you want to see it all here in WebAdmit. So they basically, and I'm just going to show you really quick, in customs fields, this is where you would go to set it up. So again, you check off all the programs. And you do have options. You can do like text value, or you can do like a date or a number if you want the answers to be entered that way. What else do we have here? I'm just going to go back to the application. As you see, I click this button a lot just to go back to the dashboard. And then this is, I use a lot too, because basically for you guys, it's going to be just in progress or complete. In progress means they haven't, you know, clicked that submit button. Complete is they have paid and submitted. And they should be all set on your end, pending all the additional stuff that you guys need. So, standardized tests. This is pulled from the standardized test section of the application. They can also have, if they have official score sent, you would be able to see this here. Education, they're going to list their schools, the degrees. You can see here, actually you will ignore this right here. Ignore the not yet verified, because with your service you guys don't do verification. You can also do requirements. This would be another thing. Let's say you have a supplemental application and you want to track their progress. You know, did they pay that fee? You could add that as a requirement. It's very similar to the custom fields. The only difference is you're just basically putting in a requirement and you're only going to be able to say yes, no, or NA. Basically requirements fulfilled, not fulfilled. So professional references so this is different from the evaluations in the letters portal. There's an actual references section where the candidate literally just puts in the name, email, and information, and that's it. If you guys wanted to reach out to that person, you could, but it's basically just standard information in case you wanted to reach out and get more info. So again, you have experience here, emails, the whole history of all the emails you've sent are going to be here. And if you wanted to put a note in, like there's something that stood out to you and you don't want to forget, feel free to put it in here so that when you come back to it, you'll be reminded of what else needs to be done. The last section here, history. This is just going to show you generally the activity that's going on. with the applicant. So you'll see here, you know, the applicant added a designation on this date. It's not going to be super detailed on what is being done. It's just kind of going to say there has been activity going on here and this is the section they were working on. So those are the main parts of the application panels here. There's one other thing that I want to show you guys. It's called local statuses. So depending on how many candidates you get, some of you may not even need to use this, but if you're in a situation where you get kind of a lot of candidates and you just want a better way to track their progress, you can create what we call a local status. So I just created a test one here. You would go here into local status, and I just created one called initial review. So a lot of programs will do this when they first get a bunch of applications submitted. They'll put them in that initial thing of application review or initial review. So there's a couple ways that you can do it if you wanted to just individually go in and put them in here. You would go here to designations and you'll see you have the ability to place them into this local status of initial review. And if I do this here, yep.
Can you do that for each individual, or can you bucket everybody into that?
You can bucket too. So this would just be a way to do it individually. But if you wanted to bucket it, there's kind of like a couple ways. So let's say as soon as people are complete, you want to just put all of these in initial review. You would go here and then you have these drop downs here. So you would go search actions, change checked applicant status. Again, check off all these programs. Next. You would say here, I want to set this to initial review. And then you would say here, I'm not actually going to do it, but you would click that here. And then once you do, all of these people are going to show up in this initial review. See, right now I just have one because of that one I individually did, but you would be able to do it in bulk that way. Another thing you can do is use List Manager. So let's say I don't necessarily want to put everyone who submitted an initial review. Maybe I want to do another kind of filter here. So first here, we'll see these settings can be seen by myself in the following work groups. If only you want to see this, you just leave it like that. If you want other people to be able to see, other people in your site to be able to see this, then you would select, I want all of my WebAdmit administrators to see this. So let's say we want to pull just people. Let's see, we'll do designation submitted date. So for instance, if we did something like this, first it's going to pull all of the people who submitted on this date or later. I was just going to pull any. So let's say the list did make sense because I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing here. You would be able to then go from that list and say and do the same thing, change checked applicant status. So kind of depending on what you're looking for, you can use this list manager section to kind of hone down on the population you're looking for and then put them all in the status that you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, through List Manager.
Yes, List Manager here. So you would do new field list. You would name it, and then here is basically all of the like exportable fields within the application. So you could be like
Manager, or what was the other way to do it?
Individually or the other way, like in bulk.
In bulk. Like
So if you wanted to just go into here designations by app list and you'd say complete. So let's say all these people are complete and we're assuming we haven't, reviewed them yet. we can go click that, and then here from search actions, we would say change checked applicant status,
Okay.
and then go through these where you check in.
Okay.
So yeah, that can be, local statuses are used a lot. It kind of helps just because every, site has their own specific process once they've submitted. So this kind of helps accommodate you guys. Alrighty, what else? What else? Now, I don't know if this is going to be applicable for you guys, but do any of you export this information, import it into your own SIS system? Okay, probably not. Though you do have this option here in the situation where you wanted to export this from WebAdmit, you would be able to go here to Export Manager. It's similar to List Manager where you have all of these exportable fields. So you can basically say, I want to export everyone. You would always keep this here, name the file, and then you would select here, I want all of these applications, and within each of these, I want to see the ID, the first name, and then you would go through and select everything that you want to see in the export, and as you do that, you'll see they show up here. So you can kind of do this to pull the information, and once you do that, it's also another option here. You can do everyone, or you can just export from a list. So you see I created that initial review list. Maybe I'll make a list of people who are accepted and I only want to export them. You would be able to do all of that. And whenever you do run, so you get all this export set, you'd say create file. It's then going to show up here under recent files, and it's going to stay there about a week before it disappears, though you can always click this Save Export Settings here if I've entered all the information, which I didn't.
Spreadsheet, or what's the format?
Yeah, it's an Excel, so I'm just going to run it here. And then you click this CSV button here to open it. And it will open in a lovely Excel file. And so you'll see here we clicked to export the CAS ID, so it just shows it all in a nice lovely spreadsheet.
And the CAS ID is what NCOPE can use to help match up the data points. So one thing that you guys are likely aware of is participation in OPRESCAS became mandatory in 2017. And even then, compliance has been a little on the low side. But when residents register now, we can see if they actually applied through this platform. So this is the portal, whether the applicant, the faculty at the schools, NCOPE staff, the AOPA meeting, everywhere when folks go, where are you sending residents to get residency info? This is really the one place. I've even worked with some of our sister organizations who said, we'd love to help you build something. You're not going to build something better than this tool that gets the output that I need. So this is really an incredibly comprehensive offering, and it's something that data-wise NCOPE requires in order for us to even be accredited. And actually, one thing I want to do out of respect for our time, because I know 1 o'clock we have a lot of folks that need to do a few things. Megan, do you mind if I steal the screen back?
Absolutely.
So
I think I gave it back.
We're good. Take-home points, guys. Make sure your relevant parties are added to the WebAdmit portal for your organization. You could have multiple individuals, and actually, if you want an example of an organization that's done it beautifully, talk to Heidi. UCSF does a really nice job with that. 2, configuration of programs occurs annually. If you were visible to applicants last cycle, that doesn't mean it's visible now. You need to actually configure. 3, make sure you do separate programs for orthotic residencies versus prosthetic residencies versus combined residencies. 4, candidates really want specific information, but we've already figured out what those items are. I've met with dozens and dozens of applicants. If you could answer the 10 questions I showed you on our website and the links listed, put it there. But if you only do one thing for applicants, who's the person they should talk to at your organization about your residency? And it should be somebody that works with residents on a routine basis, not somebody who simply has them fill out the W-9 form. Megan went through the review tools and the communication tools we have available for emailing and mail merge. And most importantly, we're really here to help. I can't stress enough, candidates want OPRESCAS. The students at the schools every day email me. I get at least 10 emails a day. Hey, are more companies coming on soon? And for those you already set up, thank you. If you're not set up, let us know how we can help to get you set up. And if you have friends that have residency programs that aren't set up, send them our way. We're here to help. Furthermore, NCOPE is responsible and answers to the Department of Education. The data within this system is something that I need. Residency is an educational process, even though I recognize you're putting them on the payroll. And just beyond that point, if you're going to do a screenshot, here's a good one. If you need to track down Megan or myself, our info's on the websites that I showed you, but you're also welcome to just take a snapshot right here and get a hold of us. My direct phone extension's listed there, and I think you'll find I'm pretty good on email. Megan's even faster, so we're here to help you guys. And with the 5 minutes we got left, what else can we do to help?